world heard about Lucy Connelly's explosive revelations, everything changed. And now Keir Starmer finds himself cornered like never before. What started as a local scandal has erupted into a global firestorm, igniting fury from London to New York and forcing political leaders everywhere to respond. There's no escaping it. This outrage demands answers, and Starmer's silence only fuels the storm. The question is, can he weather the backlash, or will this be the breaking point that shatters his fragile hold on power? Lucy Connelly's name was barely known outside a small circle, but that changed in an instant. What she revealed wasn't just a scandal, it was a devastating blow to the very heart of British politics. The details she exposed, hidden meetings, shadow deals and betrayals of public trust, sent shockwaves through Westminster, shaking the foundations of Starmer's leadership. Overnight, what began as whispers and murmurs turned into a loud roar heard around the globe. News outlets across continents picked up the story, flooding social media with trending hashtags demanding justice and transparency. The world is watching, and they want answers. What makes this outrage so potent is not just the facts themselves, but the timing. Lucy's revelations came at a moment when Starmer was already under pressure, grappling with economic turmoil, public dissatisfaction, and mounting criticism from within his own party. Her disclosures added fuel to a fire that had been quietly smouldering beneath the surface. Now, the cracks in Starmer's armour are exposed for all to see, and those cracks are rapidly widening. From the beginning, Lucy was clear about one thing. This was about more than personal vendettas or political games. She positioned herself as a whistleblower, someone willing to risk everything to bring the truth to light. And that truth is painful. It implicates key figures in Starmer's inner circle and raises serious questions about the decisions that have shaped the UK's political landscape in recent years. The outrage is justified, and the demand for accountability is louder than ever. The global reaction has been swift and unforgiving. Allies and critics alike have condemned the apparent cover-ups and mismanagement exposed by Lucy. International leaders, once supportive of Starmer's vision, are now publicly questioning his ability to lead. Even the media, which had cautiously supported him, is turning sceptical. Headlines from the New York Times to The Guardian scream about the fallout, and opinion pieces flood every major publication, all pointing to one unavoidable truth. Starmer's position is fragile, and the Lucy Connelly outrage might just be the crisis that topples him. Behind closed doors, Starmer's team is scrambling to contain the damage. Strategies are being rewritten, messaging carefully crafted, but the core problem remains. How do you manage a scandal that has transcended borders and tapped into a deep well of public anger? Attempts to deflect and dismiss Lucy's claims have only made matters worse. The more Starmer tries to ignore the outrage, the louder it grows. And in today's hyper-connected world, ignoring a scandal of this scale is no longer an option. The stakes have never been higher. The unfolding crisis surrounding Lucy Connelly's revelations is not just a political scandal, it's rapidly becoming a test of leadership and credibility for Keir Starmer. With each passing hour, new pieces of evidence surface, painting a more disturbing picture of secrecy and manipulation at the highest levels. What was once dismissed by some as mere gossip or political infighting is now undeniable proof of systemic issues within the government. The public's trust is eroding fast, and Starmer's political opponents are seizing the moment to demand his resignation. But this is no ordinary call for change. This is a global demand echoing from parliaments across continents and stirring public outrage worldwide. Lucy's testimony, backed by leaked documents and recorded conversations, reveals a pattern of decision-making that bypassed democratic norms and prioritised personal gain over national interest. These revelations have ignited protests not only in London but also in major cities worldwide, where citizens rally in solidarity demanding justice. The media frenzy is relentless. Every detail, every accusation is dissected and broadcast on an international stage, turning the story into a powerful narrative of corruption and betrayal. Starmer's government is now fighting an uphill battle against a wave of scrutiny that shows no sign of receding. Within the corridors of Westminster, tension is palpable. Senior officials are whispering about the potential fallout. Some warn that the scandal could fracture the Labour Party irreparably, while others speculate about a possible leadership challenge. Starmer himself is reportedly isolating, aware that the situation is spiralling out of control. His attempts to deflect blame onto political rivals or dismiss the claims as exaggerated are falling flat. Instead, these moves only deepen suspicions and increase public demands for transparency. The longer Starmer remains silent or evasive, the more the pressure mounts, and the more his image as a steady, trustworthy leader fades. This crisis also shines a harsh light on the mechanisms of power and influence within the UK. Lucy's outrage reveals not only the misdeeds of a few individuals, but a broader culture of secrecy that has allowed corruption to thrive unchecked. Investigators and watchdog organisations are now stepping up their inquiries, uncovering a web of connections that stretch beyond the UK's borders. The global impact is clear. Allies and trade partners are re-evaluating their relationships, wary of the instability this scandal exposes. Economists warn that political turmoil on this scale risks destabilising markets, potentially triggering a broader crisis with far-reaching consequences. Starmer's political survival depends on how he responds in these critical moments. Many argue that a genuine public reckoning, including accepting responsibility and initiating reforms, might be his only chance to regain trust. However, insiders suggest that Starmer's instinct is to cling to power at any cost, even if that means doubling down on denials and distractions. This approach risks alienating not only voters, but also key allies within his party and government. The global spotlight is unforgiving, and the world will not easily forget the Lucy Connelly outrage. For Starmer, this isn't just a scandal to manage, it's a defining moment that could reshape the future of British politics forever. As the Lucy Connelly scandal continues to unfold, the deeper implications become impossible to ignore. This is no longer just a political crisis, it's a moment that tests the very foundation of governance, accountability and democracy itself. Public trust, once a cornerstone of Starmer's leadership, is rapidly eroding. People across the UK and around the world are questioning how a government that promised transparency and integrity could become entangled in such a web of deceit and betrayal. This global outrage reflects a collective demand for a new kind of leadership, one that cannot simply brush scandals under the rug or manipulate the truth for political survival. The ripple effects of Lucy's revelations have reached far beyond Parliament. Civil society groups, human rights organisations and international watchdogs are now demanding thorough investigations. Calls for independent inquiries have grown louder and pressure mounts on the government to cooperate fully. Many experts warn that if these demands are ignored, it could lead to widespread protests and civil unrest. Already, demonstrations have erupted in multiple cities worldwide, symbolising solidarity with Lucy and a rejection of corruption wherever it exists. Social media is ablaze with hashtags condemning Starmer's handling of the crisis, and viral videos show people from all walks of life expressing frustration and anger. Inside the Labour Party, the situation is fracturing fair. Some MPs and senior figures are beginning to publicly distance themselves from Starmer, worried about their own political futures. Secret meetings have reportedly taken place to discuss possible leadership challenges, and factions within the party are forming, each with different visions on how to move forward. This internal discord only amplifies the chaos and signals that Starmer's grip on power may be slipping. The question now isn't just if he will survive this storm, but what shape the party and the country will take once the dust settles. Internationally, the scandal has also prompted renewed scrutiny of UK foreign policy and alliances. Allies who once saw Starmer as a stable partner are reconsidering their stance, with some openly expressing concerns about the implications of a leadership clouded by scandal. Trade negotiations and diplomatic efforts are reportedly being reassessed, and some officials fear that the UK's reputation on the world stage may suffer long-term damage. The stakes are incredibly high, not just for Starmer, but for the entire nation. The scandal risks isolating the UK politically and economically at a time when global cooperation is more critical than ever. Despite all this, Starmer's response remains cautious, almost calculated. Rather than embracing full transparency, he continues to tread carefully, releasing carefully worded statements that avoid direct admissions or clear commitments to reform. Critics say this only highlights a disconnect from the public's demands and deepens the crisis of confidence. Supporters argue that Starmer is trying to maintain stability amid chaos, but even they admit that the situation has become increasingly difficult to control. The coming days and weeks will be decisive. Will Starmer take the bold steps necessary to address the outrage head on, or will he let the scandal consume his leadership entirely? One thing is clear. Ignoring Lucy Connelly's outrage is no longer an option. The final question now is how far this scandal will go and whether Keir Starmer can still control the narrative. The Lucy Connelly outrage has exposed fault lines not just within his administration, but across the entire political system. Public faith in leadership is at an all-time low, and international scrutiny means this is not just a domestic problem anymore. With every new detail that emerges, the pressure on Starmer intensifies. Key allies have begun to distance themselves, while opponents grow bolder, sensing an opportunity to capitalise on his vulnerability. In the halls of power, whispers of resignation and political upheaval grow louder. The way forward is uncertain, but one thing is undeniable. Starmer can no longer afford to ignore this global backlash. The demands for accountability are clear. Full investigations, transparency in governance, and meaningful reforms to prevent such abuses from happening again. Citizens across the UK and the world are watching, expecting decisive action. If Starmer fails to respond with honesty and resolve, he risks not only his leadership, but also the stability of his party and potentially the entire government. The stakes have never been higher. Political analysts suggest that Starmer's best chance to salvage his position lies in embracing radical transparency and demonstrating genuine commitment to change. This could mean cooperating fully with investigations, exposing those responsible for wrongdoing, and taking bold steps to rebuild trust. However, the window for such action is rapidly closing. Delays or half measures will only fuel further outrage and deepen public disillusionment. For Starmer, this is a defining moment, one that will either cement his legacy as a leader who faced crisis head-on or mark the beginning of his downfall. Meanwhile, Lucy Connelly's impact continues to grow. She has become a symbol of courage and truth, inspiring others to speak out against corruption and abuse of power. Her story resonates globally, tapping into a widespread frustration with political elites who seem untouchable. In this era of instant communication and digital activism, scandals no longer stay confined within borders. The outrage sparked by Lucy has shown how interconnected the world has become and how demands for justice can quickly escalate beyond expectations. As the dust settles, one thing is certain: Keir Starmer's political fate will be decided not behind closed doors, but in the court of public opinion, a court that is judging him more harshly than ever. The Lucy Connelly outrage has exposed vulnerabilities that cannot be ignored, and the world is watching closely. Will Starmer rise to the challenge, or will this scandal be the catalyst that brings his leadership crashing down? The next few days will tell a story that will be remembered for years to come. As the fallout from Lucy Connelly's revelations deepens, the pressure on Keir Starmer is shifting from political circles to the very heart of the British public. Polls reveal a dramatic drop in approval ratings, with voters expressing anger, disappointment, and a sense of betrayal. Ordinary citizens are no longer passive observers. They are demanding action and accountability. The outrage has crossed party lines, uniting people who feel the system has failed them. Street protests, online campaigns, and community discussions are now focused on one question: how long can Starmer continue to evade responsibility? This growing public unrest is not happening in isolation. Key institutions, from the judiciary to watchdog agencies, are stepping up, signalling that the political elite cannot simply sweep this scandal under the rug. Investigations are expanding in scope, and whistleblowers inspired by Lucy's courage are coming forward with new evidence. This cascading effect threatens to overwhelm Starmer's administration. Experts warn that the scandal's impact could trigger a constitutional crisis, especially if high-profile figures within the government become implicated. The potential for wider political instability is real, and no one is underestimating the consequences. Inside the party, tension reaches a boiling point. Leadership contenders are quietly mobilising, preparing to seize the moment should Starmer falter. Behind closed doors, discussions revolve around restoring credibility and rebuilding trust. But the path forward remains murky. The party faces a critical crossroads. Cling to a leader whose reputation is tarnished, or embrace radical change to reclaim public confidence. The decisions made in the coming days will not only shape the Labour Party's future, but also determine the political landscape of the UK for years to come. Meanwhile, the international community watches closely. Allies voice growing concerns about the UK's stability, with some diplomats privately questioning whether they can continue to rely on a government embroiled in scandal. Trade negotiations and security alliances hang in the balance, underscoring how deeply political turmoil can ripple beyond borders. Starmer's challenge is immense, balancing the demands of domestic crisis management while maintaining the confidence of the global partners, critical to the UK's future. For Starmer, the clock is ticking. The Lucy Connelly outrage is no longer a story confined to headlines. It has become a movement, a catalyst for change, demanding transparency, justice and reform. Whether he chooses to confront this head-on or retreat behind political defences will define not only his legacy, but the very direction of British democracy. The world waits, watches and wonders. Can Starmer rise above this storm, or will this be the beginning of the end?